So let me begin by just giving a little bit of background. So my background is in education and teacher education. My initial education background was in early childhood education, and I went on to work in special education, then came back by way of further study to become a teacher educator. And I've always been interested in and committed to the transformative possibilities of education. So education for transformation is the heart of all the teaching I do and have done. And that means actually having experiential understanding of any kind of concept, practice, or whatever we want to communicate, to bring into our lives, to lead better lives, to be part of making the world a better place. So after more than 20 years as a teacher educator, more than 30 years as an educator, I came to the practice of mindfulness through completing a PhD and having a friend who was a scholar of comparative religions introduce me to the Buddhist canon, because what I was talking about in my PhD reminded her of the content of those texts, and I became very taken with that. And after years of reading then in that field, I began to practice, after talking myself out of it, making excuses for several years, as seems to be the case when people encounter mindfulness or meditation or contemplation, those contemplative practices. We get a sense this is probably going to be good for us, but we make all sorts of excuses not to do it. And there really is not good excuses. They're just because after all, there's nothing. It takes nothing. It takes no special equipment. It takes no financial commitment. It just takes an inner commitment. So I began introducing the practice into my classroom, then teacher education, and at that time it was a very controversial thing. All my colleagues are saying, don't mention meditation. So I, through another academic in another field, unfortunately at a university in Western Australia, I'm from Australia, used this term disengaging to engage. I'm sorry I can't recall the name of this lovely woman who gave me that label for the practice. So I began then all of my classes with disengaging to engage, which was and is a practice of basically saying you've just been doing something else, fully engaged with something else, all of this stuff is still on your mind. I want you to be fully present in my class to what we're going to do together, what we're going to learn together. So let's just spend a moment to come back to ourselves. And it goes like this, disengaging to engage. So just allow your eyes to be lightly closed if that feels all right for you. And then allow your awareness to come fully into your body. And then just move your attention down to the soles of your feet and notice what's happening there. What can you sense at the soles of your feet? And then just intentionally moving your awareness up through your body into the ankles, the lower legs, the knees, the thighs, perhaps feeling the weight and the pressure of the buttocks against the seat, moving your awareness up into the back, maybe feeling the back against the chair, maybe feeling the movement of the breath in your belly, maybe feeling a little tension around the shoulders and just letting that soften. Allowing your awareness to move down to your fingers and back up your arms, circle your neck, come to your face and allow your face to soften a little bit. And then open awareness to your whole body, and perhaps taking a few fuller breaths, feeling the breath entering and leaving the body, perhaps noticing the sensations at the nostrils or the throat or the chest. And then just letting the breath be as it is as you become fully present to the breathing body here right now. And then perhaps counting 3 breaths. And at the end of the 3rd breath, just allowing your eyes to open, taking in your surroundings and being fully present here. And so we begin. And this little practice actually combines all of the elements of mindfulness: intention, attention, and attitude. So we're just noticing what's going on right now for us, in us and around us, and we're doing this with a friendly attitude, befriending ourselves, befriending our experience, befriending the fact that we're here whether we really wanted to be or not. Now we are. And this applies to teachers and to students. And it also brings together my preferred definition of mindfulness, which comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn, the creator of the mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And I like it. One, it's the most published definition of mindfulness, and it's easy to remember. It's concise, and it holds these three elements in it. And it is that mindfulness is a particular way of paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So it has these three elements of intention, attention, and attitude to whatever's happening right now. We bring this sense of friendly, open curiosity. So this brings together the notion of mind and heart. And in Sanskrit, that word is the same. And often in Asian cultures, people say, I think. Whereas we tend to say, I think, it's all in the head. But actually, it's also the heart. So this allows the heartfulness of teaching to come in. So yes, there's great programs and great links to neuroscience, the value of practicing mindfulness for education. It improves memory, it improves focus, it improves decision making, it also improves relationships. And those things are core to good teaching. And really it begins with our own practice. That's my position. You don't need to practice in order to instrumentally use mindfulness in your classroom, but to truly convey it, to have an experiential understanding of it is invaluable, and it doesn't take much effort. It just takes commitment. It's just saying, I will do this. I will do this for me. It will be good for me. It will be good for my students, because I will be more present to them. And our presence to our students is possibly the best gift that we can give them, to be truly present and open to them with an affectionate, open curiosity. I remember hearing the Dalai Lama respond to a question in a panel at a conference I was at once. This wonderful Czech-Australian comedian, her name's Magda Jabransky, asked His Holiness, so this all sounds terrific basically, but what do we do in education? And he said, first thing, maximum affection. I thought if only we could start from that place, that if we open to ourselves with affection, we befriend ourselves, we befriend our own experience through this practice of mindfulness, then we can be open to others. And I also remember reading His Holiness say that children need stores of joy to sustain them through difficult times. And you know, in these current times when there's so much pressure on teachers to perform, to get standardised tests, scores right, to conform to standardised curriculum, our stress levels go up, and so do the stress levels of our students, and all the joy kind of drains out of our work. And yet I do believe most of us come to education as a joyful thing, of wanting to bring joy to kids through learning, through the joy of learning, and all the standardisation, all the pressure to form, all the accountability measures and so on are draining that out of us. And it is my experience, and the experience of many teachers now that I've had the good fortune to convey these practices to, they've gone back into their classrooms and talk about how this is actually making a difference. So that it's not about content. So there's a bit of reservation that, there's so much we have to do already. We can't just add on another thing. But it's not an add-on. It's actually a part of the process. So just in that little practice I introduced you to, you can see just that, minute that we can spend at the beginning of a lesson, or as we come in, as a transition activity. But we can do it routinely We can do it spontaneously, and we can talk to children about getting in touch with their feelings, their sensory experience. So the first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body, and we can use any of the senses as an entry point. So when we're walking from one place to another, we can get them to focus on a particular sense. Okay, as we're walking from here to here, notice what you can feel on your skin, or perhaps what you can smell, or perhaps the sound of your steps on the ground, or perhaps you can notice what you see that is orange. Or yes, so we use this as a focus, and it becomes a part of what we're doing. And of course then an important part of mindfulness that isn't talked about so much, but I think is really important for teacher education and for teachers' implementation of mindfulness, is the process of reflection. So it's in when we reflect, so after the walk, if we ask questions, oh, what did you notice? Then that really brings this sense of awareness. So it really is all about awareness. If we see mindfulness as synonymous or supported by the practice of meditation, the essence of meditation is awareness. We have this human capacity to be aware. All living things do, but we have this capacity to be aware of being aware. And that's a really important part of the process of education and learning, to understand that we have awareness and that we are able to be aware of what we're aware of, and we can communicate this. So the practical aspects of the practice of meditation, the intentionally paying attention on purpose in the present moment of non-judgmentally means that we can come to any task, the task of teaching, the task of learning, and we can convey that in the classroom through our own presence and by introducing our students to these practices. And one of the strongest experiences, most compelling experiences of this was actually while I was scholar in residence at the Garrison Institute in New York, working on their initiative for contemplation and education. I had the good fortune to visit a school using the Mind Up curriculum, which was a part of the sponsored by the Horn Foundation and developed by really good people, and very much focused on the neuroscience of mindfulness. And I visited the school, really challenging demographic, lots of English as a second language kids, low-income families and so on. The level of attentiveness in these classes was just remarkable, and the teachers used the practice at the beginning of all of their lessons that I observed by getting the kids to come back to the present moment awareness by paying attention to their breath, often resting their hand on their belly and breathing into the belly, so to really get a physical sense of the breath. And also then to ask them about mindfulness. So what happens when we're mindful? And the kids would talk about, oh, we're paying attention. This part of our brain is activated. So it has a foundation in brain science, in neuroscience. And each of the classrooms had an image of the brain. And the kids could actually talk about the parts of the brain and what would be activated when we're paying attention in this way, when we're we're agitated, you know, our amygdala goes offline. You need to pacify your amygdala. I actually just taught a little course called Bringing Mindfulness to Life at School in Australia, and one of the teachers there had been practicing mindfulness with her kids, and she had labelled these parts of the brain for animals. She's an early childhood educator. So there was the wise owl, which was the frontal cortex, and the amygdala was the guard dog. And so if your guard dog gets angry, right, and goes offline, then you need the wise owl to activate. And she found using these animal metaphors for parts of the brain worked really well with young children. And it really, brought home to me, this is a teacher who has a strong personal practice and commitment to the practice. And if teachers come to it through their own practice, then teachers are teachers. Teachers are all so well trained to be good teachers, to be responsive to students in their class and to the curriculum. Find the best way to convey this so that children are present, that they enjoy the learning, they feel like they belong, they feel like they're understood. And so coming to the teaching of mindfulness education through the teacher's own practice and responding to the kids, you know, from the heart, from the practice, by being fully present to them, teachers find their own way with this. You know, so these small children are, you know, they do know the proper names, but in terms of understanding them by adding that metaphor of the animals that behave in certain ways, really speaks to how it incites the imagination. And there's some good research around how practicing mindfulness also opens our creative sense. And I think this is something that teachers can really benefit from, and their students will benefit as well. After all, for me at least, teaching is a creative activity. It's an art form. It's not just a science. And if we can go back to the art and know that it's underpinned by the science, and the science about mindfulness and what it can do for us in emotion regulation, attention, focus, relationship building, communication, all of these things are in the art of teaching. And so for me, that transformative power of practicing mindfulness for ourselves so we can be present to ourselves and be present to our students will infuse our teaching in effective ways. So I hope that's helpful and encouraging for people who might be interested in giving it a go.